Welcome back to the show, everyone. I have an extremely special guest today, Mr. Aaron Francis. How are you today, Aaron?
I am doing great. It's always a joy to talk to you. We've known each other at this point 10 years, 8 years, something like that.
I what I tell people is I knew Aaron before he was famous, and
Which could include
I
right now, just for the record.
no, you're incredibly famous, and I didn't have you on the show earlier just because I wanted to save you until I had more than like 10 downloads, and I think we're getting to that point. So everyone, Aaron Francis is on the show, and yeah, we've known each other through we have a business Slack that
Mm-hmm.
we're both in. I think we've both been in for over 10 years,
Mm-hmm.
close to that. And I tell everyone, you got to find your group. You got to find your like core tribe of people. And you've been a part of that for forever. I don't think we need to go in too much detail of our group because there's a lot of people in there you probably wouldn't expect to.
It's a secret cabal, but you
It
gotta
is.
find your secret cabal of friends that you can talk to.
But it's been nice to just kind of watch everyone become more successful. It's like, what's the saying? Like rising tide raises all ships.
Uh-huh.
And
Uh-huh.
I feel like everyone in that group who has been active over the past couple of years, everyone's just gotten better.
Mm-hmm.
And it's fun to watch people be successful. And I really attribute a lot to you. You've just been super successful in, I feel like, almost everything you've touched. And so it's actually a real pleasure for me to chat with you a little bit deeper about this because we don't get this opportunity very often.
Well, you're kind to say so. Where do you want to start? I'm an open book.
Well, let's start with what you're doing now. So TryHard
Okay.
Studios,
Mm-hmm.
just anyone who's not up to speed with what you're doing, what's
Yeah.
TryHard Studios? What's the goal with that?
Yeah. So my friend Steve and I just recently, like literally in the past, 2 or 3 months, have started a business called TryHard Studios, and we make video. We make video that developers want to watch. And so the way that expresses itself is sometimes on YouTube. So I have like my personal YouTube channel, and sometimes also with courses. So right now I'm working on a big course for a database called SQLite. So it's kind of like it's actually actually like the most widely used database in the world, but very few web people use it. And so I'm having a fun time learning all about that and translating it into a thing that would be useful for more like web or application developers.
It's actually funny. You're the first person I've seen talk seriously about SQLite in 15 years.
Yeah,
It's
yeah, exactly.
because you're right. I've only ever seen it in not in web applications, but in like small desktop applications or
Uh-huh.
background services and stuff like that.
Yep.
It's never been for web. Are you trying to promote it as a thing to use for web apps, or is it more central for what it's been used for 20
Yeah.
years?
Yeah. So it's been used for literally, I think it was written in the year 2000, maybe 99 or something. And it's incredibly good for, it's an embedded database. So you'll, on your iPhone or your Android, you probably have 100 to 1,000 SQLite databases just on your phone for various different things. And it's just so rock solid because it's been battle tested in environments where the power could go away or the flash drive could be pulled out in the middle of a transaction. And so it's just incredibly rock solid, and the format super stable, that it's actually the archival format of the Library of Congress here in the US. And so it's a very good database, but it's got this, giant glaring limitation that it's not client server. So you have to like be in the same place as the database file. And that's really limited a lot of people using it on web. And so my goal is to teach people how to use it, but also teach web developers that they can use it. And honestly, it'll probably be good enough for the first many, many years of your application. And if you don't make it past those many years, then that's okay. You haven't wasted a lot of time setting up some other database.
It's kind of funny. So many people go into a greenfield application and thinking about scale. Like, oh, I need the
Mm-hmm.
scale to
Mm-hmm.
million concurrent requests, and really they need 5 concurrent requests per second. And
exactly.
I'm going to have to pick that up. I don't use SQLite for web applications, but I like to talk about potentially using it. I feel like there's use cases for that, plus if you're using production MySQL or Postgres or SQL Server or something else. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. How'd you come up with SQLite as the topic, though?
Yeah. So that's kind of interesting. So Steve and I both worked at a company before we started our own, and we got caught up in giant layoffs. So they laid off all the marketing team, all the sales team, a bunch of engineers, a bunch of security people. Like fully half the company got let go. And so at that point, we were both kind of like, well, this sucks. What do we do now? And one of the first calls I had post layoff was with the CEO of a company called Terso. And I got on the phone with him and was like, hey, I would, because it's a database company. I just came out of a database company, and I was like, hey, I'd love to hear about your company, what you got going on. And he was like, whoa, let me just like, you should go out on your own. This is the CEO of a company I thought I was interviewing with. He's like, you should go out on your own, and we will be your first client. Like, I don't have a job for you, but I want to tell you you've got what it takes. And I was like, what is going on here? This is wild. And so I took a bunch more calls during the layoff, and then finally was like, no, we should start our own thing. And so then I circled back to Glauber, who's the CEO of Terso, and was like, hey, what if we took you up on that? What if you really were our first client, and we create a SQLite course and Terso sponsors it? So Terso is hosted SQLite. So they can take your SQLite and make it distributed and put embedded replicas in your different apps all over the world, stuff like that. So it's very, very interesting. And he was like, yeah, sounds great. And so coming out of my old job, which I was a database educator at a company that doesn't matter, I was a database educator. And I thought, I kind of have the attention of database people and full stack developers, and they kind of already view me as an authority on databases. And so this feels very directionally correct. And so we started with SQLite, and then after that, we have a Postgres course coming as well. So kind of trying to stay in that database vein for as long as I can, because that's kind of where they know me.
How'd you even get into that niche of databases? Because I know your background, and we'll talk about your background for tech, but niching into databases, how did we get there?
Yeah, it was one of those things where I kind of thought everybody knew more than me about everything. And I started writing a little bit and talking a little bit online about database performance and database optimizations and stuff, just because I grew up PHP, MySQL, LAMP stack, MAMP or WAMP. I just grew up on that stack, and it was in that time, you just did everything. Like you had to know how the database worked, right? And I come by it honestly because my dad was a DBA for his whole career with Microsoft SQL Server. And so like, I just kind of like knew and liked the database. And so I'm in the Laravel ecosystem a lot, and I started talking about database stuff, and people were like, oh dude, I didn't know any of that. I'm like, really? Oh man, maybe I do have a little bit of knowledge here, which I think is always interesting, that, how much we discount ourselves. So I started writing about it, and, I bought some more books so that I could like actually bone up on my knowledge, because I don't have a computer science degree. So I started reading and writing about it. And that's when the CEO of the database company that I used to work at reached out and was like, hey, I see what you're doing. Do you want to just come do that for our company and get paid for it? Like, that's awesome. I would love to do that. So it was kind of like, it came out of me naturally, but other people, like, I wouldn't have known that if I hadn't been putting myself out there and saying like, hey, here's some content, and people being like, wow, this is great.
So you're doing the course on high performance SQLite.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the only income that you're really expecting to TryHard Studios? Or are you really going deep on YouTube as well?
Mm-hmm.
What other forms of income should the studio be looking forward to?
Yeah, so we are definitely looking forward to YouTube income and looking back on it. We've already got it. Like it's this is our model is I do developer videos, put them on the YouTube channel, and hopefully hopefully some people come along and want sponsored videos. And that has been the case so far. We've already booked and shipped and gotten paid for several of those. I think going forward, I'm looking for more like durable long-term channel sponsors. So we can say like, hey, company XYZ, for the next, I don't know, 2 months, we'll put a mid-roll in every video that we do or something like that. That's kind of what I'm looking for, because making one-off videos is tough. Because I want it to kind of be authentic, right? I don't want to just be a shill. And so I kind of have to like research and use the thing and get used to it and understand the trade-offs. And so it's just a lot of work for a dedicated video. But yeah, so the YouTube is a big portion of our income. We're hoping the course, we will sell the course to end users. So there's money there. And Terso is sponsoring the course. So there's money there as well. So Terso is a part of the course, and they paid us for that privilege, but we're also selling it to end users. So we'll get paid for that.
Oh, okay. I didn't think I knew that. I thought it was like the West Boss style of company is paying for the creation of the course and the sponsorship of the course, so it could be provided freely to whomever might need it. But they are a name on the course, and you're still going to sell it separately from.
Yep,
Okay.
Yep. Exactly. So our goal with the course is to teach honest to goodness, open source SQLite. That being said, Terso has made a lot of these things really easy. So let me show you exactly what you need to do everything yourself. Also, course sponsor Terso, you should go check them out because you wouldn't have to do any of this. And so hopefully it kind of lines up well in that the learner gets actual like genuine knowledge, but the sponsor gets like attention and hopefully customers, because those people are going to be like, yeah, I don't want to do it the hard way.
What design considerations are you taking for the course to make it not seem like just a sleazy ad for the sponsor?
I think the overarching principle is I'm going to teach you SQLite. Now, like that includes, if we're talking about in a web scenario, what if you have 2 servers? Well, shoot, SQLite is one file, right? So now what do we do? So there are open source tools around that, something like, Lightstream or something to replicate or to get backups out or something like that. And so we'll cover some of that. So my goal is always that the learner walks away knowing everything they need to know about SQLite to be successful. Also, they walk away knowing if they want to take the easy path, if they want to take the done for you path, in my opinion, Terso is the best way to do that. But if they want to take the DIY path, you are armed with enough knowledge to do that. And so that's kind of the angle. And honestly, when I was at the old company, that's how I did it there too. I taught MySQL, like through and through, open source version of MySQL. And also, if you want to put your MySQL database somewhere, I think our company is the best place to do that, but you don't have to do that. And it worked incredibly well. So that's kind of the goal for their Terso SQLite course as well.
I want you to talk about the difference in production quality of a TryHard Studio video versus, I don't know, your most typical YouTube video on developer topics. Like you and Steve do a superior job of anything we've ever seen before. Could you kind of talk about like what's the secret sauce of the production value for TryHard?
Sure. Yeah. I'm happy to give away all the secrets. The secrets, you just got to work really hard. I mean, that really is a lot of it. I think there's an unspoken thing there too, that you have to personally have good taste. And that's a big part, I think, of what Steve and I have, and Steve has it in spades, and I have some of it, but Steve is like, he is a video producer. Like he is a video guy, not like a screencasting guy like me. He's like, I could do cinematography. And I'm like, well,
Mhm.
as long as I can record my screen and sit here, I'm happy. So I think a big part of it is we know what we like and what we don't like. And I think we have taken the time to identify 10 to 15 to 20 little things that add up to make the video feel super, super polished. And so, setting up this studio in here was a big thing. And Steve helped me like dial in the lighting to make sure that I, looked good on camera. Like the way that I record like I end up doing it a lot. I end up redoing a lot of stuff. And that is solely or primarily because I want the final video to not be super choppy. So I think there are some YouTubers that like will chop up literally every third or fourth word, and it just
Yeah.
becomes a series of jump cuts, and that's a style. And I don't think that any style is ever objectively wrong. I just don't like that style. And so I think Steve and I have developed what our style is, and we're willing to put in just like the work to make it look like we want it to look. And so like Steve is, matching the rounded corners of the camera inlay with the UI that's shown on the screen and color correction and all this kind of stuff that like other people would look at and say, oh, that's just a little detail. And we're like, yeah, it is a little detail and we're going to do it.
And it's the combination of all these things. I feel like it's easier to learn if you're not put off by jump cuts and bad audio and bad video. And I say this, that I'm like I'm looking at my video right now. My video is awful. And I'm super jealous of your setup, but I have also not put in the effort to try to clean it up. And I'm inspired to do that now. I just need to get off my butt. But yeah, I watch those videos and I generally don't like watching developer YouTube. I like the polished videos. I watch your videos. I don't even do Laravel. Like,
yeah.
I'll watch it and go, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
To know and follow along, and it's scripted. I've heard you on other podcasts talk about that you'll go through the entire end-to-end demo, throw it all the way, and then record it.
Yep.
So you have that more seamless, all right, do A, then B, then C.
Yep.
And it just makes for a better video in the end. And
yeah, I think there's a so I'm of two minds. One mind is you should just start wherever you are with whatever you have and do whatever you need to get anything out the door. Yes. Then after that, I personally think, I think there is a little bit of a shift going on in developer video that like we've been doing like the live stream kind of chaotic, kind of like dark neon. We've been doing that for a long time. And so just when I'm looking at that, I think, man, it could be a little more fresh, right? And so we went, in here, we went with light mode. Like my studio is light and airy and it has plants and the background is white. And when I use the editor, like when I'm showing my screen, I'm in light mode because I think there is like a little bit of a shift to more polished and less, and I don't mean this in a disparaging way, but like gamer in the basement. That has been like, that's an identifiable vibe. And that has been the vibe for a long time. And I think we're kind of like, hey, let's put some effort into this now.
I think we've talked about TryHard quite a bit. Let's move backwards into your life before TryHard, because I know you've had a lot of interesting endeavors before that. So you worked at a database company, and were you doing anything on the side at database company? I know you had YouTube.
Always.
All right, let's get into some of the things you were doing outside of the day job.
Yeah, outside of the day job. So we're here. It's multi-threaded income, right? We got to talk about the side stuff. So I've been doing side stuff for forever, as you well know. The big one in the past year and a half, maybe just the past year, is it's another course actually at screencasting.com. And so I took everything I know about recording video and creating screencasts and teaching so that people can understand. and I turned that into a video course and put that available for sale. And so when I got laid off, it sucked, of course, but it was also like, I'm not starting from a standing stop, right? I'm already in motion. Things are already happening. And if I decide to, which I did, I could just pick up those things and push them a little further or a little harder. And that's kind of the plan. So screencasting.com has now been folded into the TryHard Studios brand. And so we'll be, after this SQLite course, we'll be readdressing that course and making that even better. And so these things, like these threads that have been open for a while, really, really paid off when the downturn, my personal employment downturn hit.
Do you feel your life got easier or harder post layoff?
So much easier.
So much easier?
So much
even though
easier.
you're fully responsible for your ends meet and doing all this extra work, it's still easier in the long run.
It feels so much easier I think for a few reasons. One is screencasting did pretty well. I think I've said publicly on other podcasts, it's done $100,000. And so like, that's pretty good on top of a full-time tech job. Right. And so when the storm comes and it's like, oh shoot, I just lost my full-time tech job, but I kind of been socking away some money for a little while, so I'm okay. And then all of a sudden, like, so that's one reason, is that the projects produced income, which provide a buffer, which is huge. Because I have 4 kids. I've got 2 sets of twins. I got a lot of mouths to feed. And then the other reason I feel so like at ease is I just have, it feels like I just have so much more time, because I'm not constantly serving 2 masters, right? I'm not trying to do my day job faithfully and then also push on side stuff. Now it's like, you have the one thing, and the one thing is actually many things, but I don't have, like, it's all mine, it's all me and Steve together. We're not like, oh shoot, I can't do this until 5 p.m. Because at 5 p.m., you know what I want to do? Go home and see my kids. And so a lot of that stress is kind of just like melted away. And it helps that one, I had a buffer, and 2, we've already landed sponsors for these courses. And so there's a little, like, I'm not rushing to get this course out the door to make money, because that's what the sponsorship is for. And so a lot of these things have come together to kind of be like, okay, you can work hard, but you don't have to stress out about everything.
Remind me, does your wife work?
Harder than I do, but she doesn't get paid for it. So she works at home. Yeah.
So you are essentially the breadwinner for the family. You have to go out and make the money. Was it any stress on your wife when you lost your job? I know that can be a difficult thing for spouses who don't really my wife doesn't necessarily understand what I do every day.
Of course not. No, I don't understand what I do every day. Yeah, when I called her, she was foremost, to her great credit, supportive of me. So I was up here in the studio when I got the call from my boss, and then I immediately called her, and she was just like, I'm so sorry, we will figure it out. Like, I understand, like, it's going to be okay. And beyond that, I mean, unless she's not telling me, which she tells me everything, it's been totally fine. I think, she does and has put a lot of trust in me for a long time to basically figure out the income side of our family. Like, we have pretty traditional gender roles in our family. She works really hard. I work really hard. We just work really hard at different things. And so, like, it has been very nice to have a spouse that is so supportive and believes in me to figure it all out. And of course, that is a not a bad burden, but that is like that's a burden or a duty for me to bear up under. And I think, that's a good thing. Like, it is a responsibility for me as a husband and a father. And so far it's working out pretty well.
I'm in a similar camp. My wife spends the day with the kids. She homeschools, so she is constantly in mom mode.
So she's working way harder than any of us.
She is. And I feel that responsibility of I literally have one job, is to provide for the family so she can continue doing what she needs to do. She doesn't have to
Mhm.
go to work. The kids benefit from having mom and dad around all the time.
Yep.
Literally 5 minutes before we jumped on this call, I went inside, said hi
Mhm.
to everyone, just checked in. My son got his first mowing gig down
All
the street.
right. Yeah.
So he mowed a yard and I helped him with that. And just generally checking on everyone. And then I just walk out to my shed quarters and
Yep.
do my work.
Mhm.
And we won't even talk about the shed quarters because you used to have a way better shed quarters than I did. And then you give that up for a full-on apartment. So,
Yeah. Yeah,
um,
the shed quarters was awesome. Rest in peace. It still exists. We just sold the house because we had the second set of twins. And I am now here in a 1-bedroom apartment that's like 3 minutes from my house, and this is now my co-working space, but it's just me. And so I've turned it
yeah.
into a YouTube studio / research headquarters, and it's pretty awesome.
Are there other sets in the studio that we just haven't seen yet?
There's one in progress. So I am in what would traditionally be the bedroom if I were a normal human and not just like a guy working here. This is the bedroom. Out there is the living room, and I just got a new couch, and I'm gonna put up a dark background behind it, and so I can do a little bit more like lifestyle content, talking head, that kind of stuff out in the other room.
Oh, I can't wait to see that.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun.
So you had screencasting.com. People should go
Hmm.
pick that up if they want to learn I guess the TryHard method, right? Because
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
probably
That is
all in
exactly
there.
right. Hmm.
Uh, Now I know you had other courses before that. Do you
Hmm.
want to go even farther back to some of your older
Yeah,
courses?
let's go all the way back to the beginning. I got my degree from Texas A&M in accounting, and I got my master's in accounting. And then I spent 1 year as an accountant, and I was like, "This sucks. I got to get out of here." But I loved accounting in college, and so after I was gone, I created basically Introduction to Financial Accounting for college sophomores. I had spent many years in school tutoring it to individuals, and just like, so that was my first like kind of gig in college. Was I'm an accounting tutor, and it was fun and I loved it. And so when I got out and quit accounting, I was like, I kind of want to have something that pays me on the side. And so I created an accounting course, and that has made over $100,000. I mean, it's been live for shoot, 8 years, 7 years, something like that. So it's not like a huge source of income, but it's better than a poke in the eye. And I haven't
Yeah.
re-recorded the videos in 7 years because one thing that doesn't change, accounting, that doesn't change at all. And so yeah, students pay me $39 a pop, and that's it. That, I mean, it's very straightforward. I mean, I kind of love it for its purity. Like, I will teach you accounting and you will pay me for it. Great.
And it's still going. People can still buy it today.
Yep,
Do they
still
still buy
going.
it today?
I actually turned off payments this past semester because I had to get something up to date with the Facebook login, and I was like, I can't do this right now. So I just turned off payments. So everybody's getting it for free right
Uh-huh.
now. But yeah, it's still up and still online, and hopefully by next semester, it's about to be summer, so I have a good amount of time. Hopefully by, August or September, I'll have the payments back on. And I can start getting, it's usually 8 to 15,000 a semester. And at this point, like, also better than a poke in the eye. So
Yeah.
I'll have to turn that back on. But yeah.
It I think it goes back to prove you pick an evergreen topic. So
Hmm.
accounting, it's pretty evergreen. It never
Yep.
changes. SQLite,
That's the hope.
as
Yep.
far as I'm aware, is pretty
Yep.
evergreen. It
That's the
hasn't changed
hope.
much in 20 years.
Hmm.
As so you're not picking a random thing on AWS that's going to change next year, and then we have to re-record all the material.
Or
Uh,
worse, something JavaScript. Can you imagine? It'd be out of
oh my
date
gosh,
before I
yeah.
hit publish. Yeah. Like that, there really is an art to picking course material, because it's a huge amount of work and you don't want to redo it every 6 months or even every 2 years, for goodness sakes. I mean, screencasting is the same way. Like, that that could still be relevant in 5 years. Maybe some of like the software specifics had changed, but the course is not how to do this thing in software. The course is how to do this thing. And I'll show you a few of the software bits, but it's like philosophically, how do you record and edit and produce and teach?
Yeah.
And so hopefully that's going to stay relevant for a long time. But yeah, it's a real like you really have to think about, is this thing going to be relevant in a year, because you're about to embark on a whole lot of work to record a course.
If you went to school for accounting, how'd you make the jump into software development?
I grew up programming just at home for fun. And I was doing stuff on the side while in college, you know, high school, college, out of college. I was doing programming on the side, and I had a blog, and I was writing about, like, at the time there was a PHP framework called Yi, which is impossible to say out loud. YII, Yi. And I was just, as I learned something new or like how to do something, I would write a blog post and be like, hey, I just learned this, which is a lot less pressure than let me teach you how to be the best developer. It's, I learned this and maybe it's interesting to you. So that's just like a side note. That's a good way to approach content, is what have you learned? I bet other people might want to learn it. And a company contacted me, just out of the blue. I live in Dallas, Texas, and they were in Ventura, California, and they were like, hey, can you work for us? It's like, sure, that sounds great. And so I, went back and forth to California, and this is before I was married and had kids. And so I did that, and then started getting serious with my now wife, Jennifer, and was like, I can't be in California 2 weeks out of every month. And so then I just found a local startup job here, and that was kind of it. At that point, I was in. And so, I think proof of work is pretty important, and blogging and videos and open source is all proof of work, and that gets you in the door.
I have mentioned you on the podcast multiple times, either directly or indirectly, and you coined a term that I love, and it's called luck surface area. I want you to just talk more about that for a couple minutes, because you've had some amazing luck, at least publicly, that I've seen in your career, but it's all the fruits of the hard work that you've done leading up to it. So I would love for you to talk more about luck surface area, because I think that's the most beneficial thing that anyone could get out of this conversation.
Yeah, totally. To give credit where it's due, it was coined by Jason Roberts on TechZing in like 2009 or something. Okay. And so the idea there is that, like, you have a surface area, you have some amount of material upon which luck can fall, right? Luck is very random, very hard to predict, but you can catch it, right? And the bigger your luck surface area, the more luck you're just going to catch as it flies by. And so the way to increase your luck surface area is twofold. Do things and tell people. That's it. Those are the rules. And I think as developers, primarily, we do a lot of things and then we just never tell anybody about it, right? And then as like, I don't know, because this is derogatory, I don't know, somebody else, all they ever do is talk about stuff. They never actually do anything, right? And it's like, okay, you kind of, you're paper thin at that point and people see through it. The real power is in doing something and telling people about it. And so the way that actually manifests itself in the real world is you write a blog post about it. You submit a conference talk. You make an open source package. You record a YouTube video. You put out a tweet, for goodness sakes. Like, you just tweet, hey, I learned this thing, or wow, look at this, whatever I just built. And you put that out on Twitter. And the interesting thing is, you cannot optimize or you cannot predict what is going to come from that. And that's kind of like, that's the fun part, but that's also the frustrating part. So if you have a very specific goal in mind where you're like, I need to get a job either in this industry or with this company, or I need to get in front of this person, I don't really have a lot of strategies for that. What I have strategies for is, hey, do you want your life to be better? Well, start putting yourself out there and your life will be better. How? I can't exactly explain. But some of the things that have happened to me, I've gotten a couple of jobs through, like, literally through putting myself out there. The CEO of my old company DM'd me and was like, come work here. I read your blog post. I wrote a post, put it on Twitter. It ended up on Hacker News. Somebody sent it to him. Then he DM'd me. There's no way for me to orchestrate that. There's no way for me to, like, make that happen, but it's good that it happened to me. The other stuff that's happened is, like, I've been invited to speak at conferences. Like, that is a dream. Like, that's a dream come true. And I can't force that to happen, but I can, like, influence the odds by putting stuff out there. And then, I just make friends. Like, it's just, you make a lot of friends when you're out in the conversation, mucking around with people. It's like you make a bunch of friends. And so I think that is, like, that has been the, if there's an inflection point in my career, and there is, it's when I decided I'm not going to hold back anymore. I'm just going to put out everything that I possibly can. And that is when, like, my career just totally changed.
What's the highlight of your career up to this point?
Oh, it's got to be doing my own thing. It's got to be this past, and every single thing that I've done until now has led to this. I mean, being able to not have a W-2 job and still, like, have enough money, and, like, the opportunities for making way more than my W-2, they're right there. I just need to seize them. And that is by far the most exciting and the thing I'm most proud of. And frankly, everything that I have done has led me to be here today, which is kind of exciting.
On your other podcast
Mhm.
that you do, I listened to an episode you were talking about dealing with healthcare, health
Yeah.
insurance, because
Yeah.
we're both U.S. citizens and
Yep.
we have to deal with this crazy thing called health insurance. What
Mhm.
did you eventually end up falling on? Because I know that's an important thing for a
Yeah.
lot of people out there.
That was the thing that was holding me up the most. Stay at home wife/mom, 4 kids. I have type 1 diabetes. So, like, we're not a cheap family. Like, and we
Yeah.
can't get by, unfortunately. We can't get by with one of those, like, faith-based health sharing programs, which we would otherwise qualify for. But I
Yeah.
have type 1 diabetes, and it's like, shoot, you can't, you're no good here. And so figuring out healthcare was a huge, like, barrier to entering this self-employed world. I got the COBRA notice, which for people outside the US is, like, you as an individual can pay to continue your employer sponsored healthcare. You just have to pay the full portion, like the full amount. And we got it, and it was $3,800 a month. And I was like, well, I know what I'm not going with. And so I found through another podcast, actually, that I listened to, I found Leg Up Health, which is basically independent agents. And so I spoke to their independent agent, and we had a couple of Zoom calls, and he walked me through navigating the marketplace. I think Obamacare, the marketplace. And
Yep.
the thing that I didn't realize was Obamacare, yes, provides the marketplace, but it more coordinates the tax savings of being a self-insured, basically, person. And so what I was looking at was the sticker price, but I wasn't looking at, like, what the true price would be after tax credits, which are immediate, not when you file your taxes. And so, like, our healthcare now is like $800 a month for a family of 6 or something. And that's
Okay.
because those tax credits come off the top. Now, at the end of the year, or come tax time, if TryHard Studios has made a ton of money and my income has gone way up, I'm going to have to true up some of those tax credits because those are going to go away. But right now, as it stands, I'm not going to have a lot of money on my tax return. And so I get a lot of those credits up front. And so a lot of stuff I didn't know. I would definitely recommend talking to an independent agent or broker.
I'll tell you my story.
Please.
So one thing with the marketplace, it's different state to state. So
hmm
you're in Texas, I'm in Virginia. So anything I say about Virginia doesn't apply to Texas. Anything in Texas doesn't apply to Virginia, doesn't
Yep.
apply to California, whatever state you're in. The So went through the process of figuring out what plan we wanted to be on through the marketplace. And
hmm
that's all I had access to. Virginia now has a state marketplace, which is like slightly better, but we were going through the healthcare.gov marketplace.
Yep.
And they do a questionnaire asking you what your income is going to be for the next year. And
hmm
they ask a series of bad questions. It's government.
Yep.
And they asked me, like, what was your income for October 2020, whatever? And I
hmm
said, I know the question you're asking me, and it's the wrong question because I
Right.
didn't make very much money in October, but I
Yeah.
did make a ton of money in all the other months. So I
Right.
answered the question. And if you went back and looked through my P&L statements and such, it would show I made very little money in October.
hmm
So they said, oh, well, you qualify for all these
hmm
subsidies. And I go, no, I don't.
No, I don't. And I don't
So,
want to get hosed. Yeah.
but I played the game of I'll take your subsidies because I
hmm
could do far more important stuff with my money than
Yep.
give it to you and give it to the health insurance. So I did a year of highly subsidized health care
hmm
and I paid it and I got the tax bill. And the tax bill was about, I mean, I'm just throwing the numbers out. It's about $15,000. So I made a lot of money and I had to pay all the stuff back
Yeah.
because
Hopefully you use those savings in the meantime to do
it
something.
was all in investments and high yield
Good.
savings accounts.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm trying to do the proper investment stuff with
Yeah.
my money. But like my premium should have been $1,700 a month
Yeah.
for a family of 5 in Virginia. And I was instead paying like $700 a month. I was paying half almost of what I should have been paying.
hmm
And it came back to get me because and on top of that, I had my best year.
Yeah.
And the entire career I've been independent. But now like Virginia's changed its laws again. So now I'm on a small business employer plan. And
Oh, interesting.
which it means I pay the same amount of money, but for a better plan.
Huh.
And so
Cool.
instead of a bronze level, emergency in case you're going to die plan,
hmm
it's a silver PPO plan. I have better access to my doctors and all that. And I have a HSA that goes along with it. Still high deductible, still
Yeah.
high premium, but it's overall a better plan. But I don't get the subsidies for that. And I pretty much have accepted, unless I just go completely just stop working altogether.
hmm
I'm never going to be able to get a subsidy from the government.
Yeah.
It's a bad position to be in. And also my biggest mistake, like I love my kids to death. It's a mistake having kids because they are super expensive.
Get out of here. Get out of here. Come on.
So expensive. No, I
Listen,
wouldn't trade
if
my
you're-
kids for anything.
If you're in Europe and you're listening to this and you're like, man, that sounds crazy. Let me just tell you, yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It sucks.
Uh.
We know it. We're aware of it.
And now it's one of those things. Because it's a small business employer plan. It's not a business expense. So I just whereas before it wasn't a business expense. It was CPA does his job, but
Right.
it wasn't lowering my business income.
Right.
So I was still reporting high income and getting taxed on it. Now I'm recording slightly less income and getting taxed on that. And
So
it
now
works
it's a
out
before tax expense instead of
Yeah.
after tax. That's nice. Yeah, that's a lot of money every month.
And taxes so what are we, 2024? So my 2023 taxes came back a couple of weeks ago and I actually got money back because,
Hey-oo.
and I
That's
still
great.
had a really good year. So actually it
That's
might have been a
great.
better year.
Yeah.
It all works out. Aaron, we've been talking about a lot of stuff. Anything that we haven't talked about before we kind of get to final thoughts?
Oh goodness. I don't think so. I think one thing I will caution the listener is that this all sounds very linear and very straightforward, and like I have never I've never put a foot out of line, and like it's just looking back, like I can tell that story of it being linear. the whole time it felt chaotic and like, oh, I'm a failure. I don't know what I'm doing. And just, I'm going to try as much stuff as I can. And then some stuff worked and a lot of stuff didn't. So don't, if you're listening and think, man, he's got the golden touch. Well, I've tried a lot of stuff that
Yeah.
didn't work. So don't let that put you off.
2 more questions and we'll wrap it
Okay.
up. So you're kicking off TryHard Studios. You have a partner, Steve.
Mhm.
What's your end game with TryHard? Like, where do you see yourself in the next 5-10 years?
So the first step is make more than we made at the old company. That's the first step. The end game, I mean, it's going to sound, I don't know what it's going to sound like. The end game is to make each of us more than $1 million a year. That's the end game. That's the goal.
Do you foresee it just being the 2 of you? Do you foresee it growing into an empire?
Those are different questions. It will be an empire. Okay. Yes. Will we have a lot of employees? Doubt it. I think we might have some additional, people to help edit videos, or maybe someone else here in Dallas, because Steve is in Boise, Idaho. We've talked about having a videographer come here and help like shoot some stuff, and then, Steve can edit it and spice it up. But I don't imagine us ending up in a spot where we're employing multiple like educators or anything like that. So will it be an empire? Hopefully. Will it be an empire that just Steve and I control? Hopefully.
I said 2 questions, but I'm going to build on this topic a little bit. Do you, not even so much you, do you think Steve is putting a lot of faith in you as on-screen talent?
He is.
What's the risk factor of Aaron being the only on-screen talent?
Yeah. There's some existential risk of like me dying, like that exists, and then he would be kind of hosed. In the current setup, he has very marketable skills, but that would kind of be the end of TryHard, I think. As far as like Steve and my arrangement, it's very interesting because I think Steve is more talented than I am. Like, I have no problem saying that. I think it's true. Maybe it's differently talented. Maybe more or less as a false scale. Maybe differently. But Steve has no desire to be the front man, and I love being the front man. I think it's fun. I love being on Twitter. I love being on YouTube and on podcasts. And Steve is much more like a background guy. And so early on, I would talk to Steve a lot and be like, hey man, like I'm going to tweet this. And I know that it says like, I'm launching this, or like, I just put out a video, but I like, that's just for, and he's like, dude, I do not care. He said, you are the front man. And as long as we both make money, I am just happy as could be to be in the background. And so that has worked out really, really nicely, because I feel like I have superpowers because I've got Steve like pushing me forward and not really wanting to take any of the credit. And I'm like, this is crazy to me. And so that's why I'm always very thoughtful and cautious about telling everyone who the real talent is, because he doesn't do it. He won't do it. He is just in the background. And so I think the threat for Steve is existential. Like if I die, he's in a bad spot. But I think other than that, we're pretty aligned as to like who does what and what we want out of it.
I wasn't necessarily thinking, what if Aaron dies? But what if Aaron is incapable of doing work for a period of time? So something happens, God forbid, and Aaron's not able to record videos for 2 or 3 months. The business, and this is a symptom of personality-based businesses anyway. It's not a Aaron problem. It's anyone out there with YouTube channel who's a creator. If something happens to the front-facing person, the business can't move on because there's no face to be. And I think that's what I was kind of gauging my question is, can TryHard Studios turn into something that maybe has not just Aaron, but maybe one or two other personalities building out?
Yeah. So the goal there is to operate as if that will never happen, but we are in talks with a few other educators to like not hire them, but get them to help them record and produce a course that will be under the TryHard brand. And
Okay.
so we're trying to especially on the course side, there are just a lot of things that I can't teach. Like I can't teach Rails. I don't know Ruby on Rails. I can't teach it. But there are people who are very good at teaching Ruby on Rails, and I think what they need is a little bit of guarantee of money that like if you do this thing, you'll get paid, some distribution, which we definitely have, and then some help on the production side. And so I've talked to two or three creators and given them the pitch of like, hey, listen, we will fly you to Dallas and we will record this course in 3 or 4 days, and then Steve will edit everything, and then we will host it. We will handle distribution and everything. And they've been like, sure, that sounds awesome. So there is a little bit in the works there, and it's more of like honestly a studio. It's more of a studio model than it is like we're gonna hire people to do things full time. Because like once this person teaches this SQLite and Rails course, if they were a full-time employee, I'd be like, okay, I don't know what you do now. So I think that's going to be a nice way to kind of mitigate some of that risk.
I love that. And it puts you said the studio model, it's like a publisher. I long time ago, I worked for a publisher who did exactly that. They flew me out. I recorded the content.
There you go.
They did all the editing. My life was so much easier.
Yeah.
And I got a paycheck out of it. I got something up front. And I got some royalties on the side. Well, I wish you and Steve all the luck in the world. And It's going to be fun to watch you guys just go out there and kick some butt. Our last thought, and this is new with you. We're going to try this with all of our future guests. And I'm calling this segment Action Over Inspiration. It's been a super inspirational conversation for me, hopefully for anyone else listening. But Aaron, if you were giving some actionable advice to someone who wants to be just like you, what action item can they take tomorrow to make that first step?
Publish literally anything. You get to decide what it is, where you put it. You get to decide the terms on which you tell it. Put out a tweet about what you're working on. Write a blog post. Finally open source that thing that's just been sitting on GitHub as a private repo. Like, just put anything out there, and I think 2 things will happen. You'll get momentum, and that momentum will lead to more momentum. And that's like the beginning of a flywheel. And then I think it will serve as an attractor for luck. That will increase your luck surface area. If you put it out there and the right person sees it, it can fully change your life. And you just never know when that's going to happen. So just literally publish anything and then keep going.
Well, there you go. Aaron, thank you so much for hanging out with me. I'm going to put a reminder on my calendar. We're going to have you back in a year.
Great.
We're going to see where TryHard Studios is.
Would love that.
I'm looking forward to that conversation.
Yeah, me too. Thanks for having me. I've listened to all but the most recent episode because I'm behind, and I love the show. So thanks for having me.
You can skip that episode. It's not my best.
I did see that it said something about insurance, and I was like, I don't have the emotional fortitude to listen to this right now, so I skipped it. So that's
just
the honest answer.
Business insurance, general liability,
yeah.
Professional liability. Yeah.
Something I don't have and probably need, so I'll go back and listen to it.
So, all right, Aaron, thank you again so much for hanging out with us. Everyone else, we'll see you next week on Multithreaded Income Podcast.
You've been listening to the Multithreaded Income Podcast. I really hope that this podcast has been useful for you. If it has, please take a moment to leave a review wherever you get your podcast from. And don't forget, the conversation doesn't stop here. Join us on our Discord at mti.to/Discord. I've been your host, Kevin Griffin, and we'll see you next week. Cha-ching!